Hello, good evening. Welcome to this November 18th regular meeting of the West Orange Board of Education. Mr. Calavano.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I have a motion for consideration of the closed and public meeting minutes of October 28th and 29th?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All right.
Mrs. Marklinger,
Yes.
Mr. Robertson,
Yes.
Mrs. Trigg Scales,
Yes.
Vice President Mordecai,
Yes.
President Alper.
Yes. Okay. Student liaison report. Take it away.
Thank you. Just to say good evening. Today, the past few weeks have been not uneventful per se, but we're just doing some work behind the scenes for this Board of Ed. For the student liaisons. But things that are happening at the high school include the ROTC last Monday and last Friday held two separate Veterans Day ceremonies. Last Monday they held it at Town Hall, and last Friday they held it at the high school. Both ceremonies were were dedicated towards Christopher C.J. Morgan and his tragic loss that we had, I think, June. There was also the cross-country meet that our very own Dr. Cascone came out to support. I saw him running around getting pictures with the runners Layla and Shane. Both did very well, and they made it to groups. I'm not authorized to disclose that information.
Good answer. Good answer.
Well played, sir.
The football season has come to an end. The football team just played Union, and they lost sadly, but they made it to the semifinals, which was a good run for the football team. A lot better than previous seasons.
Very good.
The musical and winter activities are starting up. There's a lot of art programs that are having their concerts upcoming before the winter break that comes, and a lot of winter sports are starting to pick up at the high school, and so that's all for now.
All right. Thank you very much. All right, Dr. Cascone.
So good evening, everyone. We have some business of the HIB report, which I'll get to in a moment, and we're very excited to have our K-12 Supervisor of Social Studies, Mr. Figueredo, our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction, Mr. Mendez, here to present on that. But just wanted to kind of say a few things before. First, I just wanted to extend thoughts, prayers, and condolences to the Santa Clarita community, Saugus High School in California, with loss of 2 students' lives there, others injured. And of course, anytime we have an experience like this in our country, it impacts us all to some extent. And from a leadership standpoint, it makes one think about, take stock of what we're doing. And we'll be in the process of kind of putting out some communication to our community in general, for me, written communication. But just a couple of updates on some of the things that we're doing. And I think you look at school security and safety, you look at it from 2 different sides. One side is, the practical, logistical side of, say, hardening the targets, as they say, working on the security infrastructure, the security personnel, and things of that nature. And along those lines, as we'd mentioned before, and thanks to the good work of Mr. Mendez and her while she was serving acting superintendent, the board, township, we did, Mr. Ziggy as well, we did secure that COPS grant. And so we've taken the first big step towards utilizing those funds. We're working with our security consultants to develop a scope of work for all of our school foyers to ensure that all of our school foyers are state-of-the-art, equipped with all the necessary security features, including, probably best if I don't go into entire detail here, but we're making sure that we're fully operational as far as our foyers for security. But to me, the real conversation about school security is really about our environment, right? And I think we know this, both our environment for our staff members, in terms of ensuring that our staff members are in a good state of mind, and our staff members are physically well, and our staff members are mentally well. Because when we have holistically well staff members, they're able to day in and day out, withstand the rigors of the job that they do, and in turn then providing a safe and nurturing environment for our students. And to that end, I mean, we're already up to a great start in terms of parental involvement programs. Last week was the Hidden in Plain Sight program up here at the high school, which teaches parents how to recognize hiding places and kind of covert spots where students might be hiding paraphernalia and drugs in their rooms. I look forward to hearing from the student liaison as to how effective you think that might be. I think you might have some thoughts, and I look forward to hearing them. But drug use, substance abuse is a precursor to mental illness, and sometimes is a direct result of mental illness. So by addressing that, that issue is obviously big. Last month in October, we did a Raising Resilient Teens presentation at Liberty Middle School, and again, kind of having equipping parents with skills to really just to kind of work with their children, again, to build that resilience and that grit to what we know can sometimes be a challenging world. We are in the process of working on a vaping grant, a $7,000 vaping grant. I'd like to commend the student assistance counselors at the high school in working with our grant writing partner to secure that grant. And then we also, not necessarily connected to mental health, but we did last week conduct our allergy awareness town hall with a focus group of parents, which was nicely attended, and we got some great feedback to help inform, our allergy management plan, which we should have as a first reading at the next board meeting. What you may have noticed that we did put out a second parent survey. We did get some good preliminary feedback, but we put out a revised survey that enables parents to note their students' grade levels and also their schools. I did put out a school messenger to parents, really asking them, and I would ask, here on TV, to really participate in that effort with us. It's a great way for you to team up and give us your input. As Sinai mentioned, we have concluded our fall season, a lot of great accolades, which we'll be recognizing at the December 16th board meeting in our Parade of Honors. And we have a couple of exciting events coming up this week. We have the Roosevelt Concert at 7 p.m. on November 20th, and we have the West Orange High School Band Concert on Thursday, the 21st at 7 p.m. And I'd just like to give a shout out to all our educators, substitute educators, related service professionals. Today is the first day of National Education Week. You may have caught my creative ode to teachers on social media. If you haven't, you got to check it out. I should read it. I'll conclude the meeting with my final thoughts with my ode to Westwood's professional educators. And that concludes my report. We do have HIB report for your review. You will see that there were 4 new cases for your initial review for this meeting. 3 of them were not confirmed. 1 was. And then we have the motions which were presented to you at last board meeting on the agenda for your approval. I have reviewed all the reports and concur with the findings. And that concludes my report,
Thank you.
other than, of course, the social studies report. So if you'll join me in the audience.
All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Mike Figueredo. I'm the Social Studies Supervisor, grades K through 12. Thank you for affording me the opportunity to discuss our outstanding program. Tonight, I have 8 goals to quickly accomplish. One is I want to provide an overview of our K through 5 program, followed by an overview of our middle school program, grades 6 to 8. Then I want to provide an overview of our 9 through 12 program. Moving forward, I want to go over some of the required mandates. I want to talk about our community relationships we have not only with West Orange, but some of the surrounding towns. Additionally, I want to go over briefly the curriculum writing process, insight to the upcoming social studies standards, and then finally, my vision for the future of social studies in West Orange Public Schools. Okay, so let's begin the grades K through 5. All right. So in kindergarten, our children take the course You and Your Family. And then in first grade, we focus on the family and the neighborhood. Second grade, the neighborhood and the community. Third grade, we focus on communities. Fourth grade, the state of community and some of the history of the great state of New Jersey. And then finally, in grade 5, we begin early American history, beginning with the study of Native American civilizations all the way through the American Revolution. The resources we use is known as Pearson MyWorld. Pearson MyWorld was chosen in 2011. And we are finishing year 7 of a 7-year subscription plan. Our subscription expires with Pearson on June 30th of this school year. Pearson was chosen back in 2011 for a number of reasons, one of which was interactive student texts, additionally interactive digital presentations, resources for student text level readers both in English and Spanish. Now, every 5 years we need to review our resources. The state basically mandates this, and our subscription with Pearson is expiring. So to make sure we do due diligence, not only for the state but for ourselves, we have formed an evaluation committee of our resources where we're going to look at the K-5 instructional resources and prepare recommendations for the 2020-2021 school year. This committee is made up of 2 to 3 elementary school teachers from each elementary school, as well as 3 administrators. The 3 administrators are myself, Mr. Eric Price, who actually led the committee back in 2011 when he was the Social Studies District Supervisor, who's now the principal at St. Cloud, and Stephen Olszewski, who was the Social Studies District Supervisor, who's now the Assistant Principal at Gregory Elementary. The 4 companies that will be presenting to us are all of which are used in the state of New Jersey: TCI, Social Studies Weekly, Nystrom, and Pearson. Moving forward with the committee, the presentations will occur during the day, one at 9:30, one at 1:30 on November 21st, and then repeat the process on December 12th. 2 finalists eventually will be chosen, and they'll be piloting the resources after the holiday break in several classrooms. The committee will then reconvene in the early spring, make a recommendation to the superintendent about the resources, and we're anticipating a board presentation in late April, early May based on our findings. K-5 are strengths through the 7 elementary schools. All schools are utilizing the same curriculum. We have a combined textbook as well as workbook, guided reading books and level readers. MyWorld complements balanced literacy. And then finally, an emphasis on student vocabulary. Now, the areas I would like to focus on for growth. One is the integration of English language arts and social studies to better develop reading and writing skills in the 21st century. Second, infusing more technology into social studies lessons on the elementary level. And finally, and this is going to be a big goal of mine that I'm working very hard on, is better articulation of social studies teachers in grades K-5 in regards to content, writing, and social studies skills. We have 7 schools. Teachers are spread out. I want to work on kindergarten teachers working together, first grade teachers working together, and so forth. Better communication between the grades, between the schools. Social studies 6 through 8. In grade 6, we covered the new nation, so after the War of Independence through Reconstruction. You're going to notice that the New Jersey Standards places a heavy emphasis on American history. Grade 7, civics. And then grade 8, ancient civilizations to the Renaissance. The instructional materials we use, both text and online sources, are right here. History Alive is our 6th grade textbook. With TCI, Civics in Practice by Holt, and by Holt McDougall, Ancient Civilizations through the Renaissance for 8th grade. The strengths of the middle school program: infusion of technology has increased engagement and enhanced learning. In fact, some of our middle school teachers are best at technology that I've seen across the district. Additionally, common planning and collaboration time are built among the teacher schedules, and you can definitely see the pros that come out of this, the fact that they're working together every single day. Common planning, common writing, common grading. Additionally, greater use of document-based evidence to enhance historical thinking skills. And you're going to see when I present the data for our AP scores where this eventually pays off based on data outside the district. DBQs, or document-based questions, are now first introduced in 6th grade, reinforced in 7th grade, mastered in 8th grade, and they're implemented in grades 9 through 12 up at the high school. Building on the student skills, each grade they advance. Additionally, in the middle school, our rubrics are aligned with ELA to help improve writing skills. And we have an emphasis on critical thinking as well as analysis. And then finally, greater communication between the 3 middle schools with our modern technology has allowed the teachers at Edison Middle School to be in consistent and constant contact, in particular with the teachers that teach 7th grade at Roosevelt and Liberty. And it really helps us going in the same direction when I'm talking about the 46 teachers that teach social studies in grades 6 through 12. Areas for growth. First here is, and I provided copies. I have copies here to give to the board secretary for the Board of Education, what is known as a C3 framework. The New Jersey standards in January, this upcoming January, are going to be released, the new standards, to the State Board of Education. Still, social studies supervisors across the state do not know what they're going to look like, but we've been told, given a little bit of information. You're going to see in the press in the coming months this term C3, C3, C3. What is C3? What is C3? What is C3? And that's why I provided copies for the board secretary for you. And just want to give you a very brief history about C3. It was a document published in 2013, a collaboration of 15 professional organizations. Some of these organizations were American Bar Association, the American Historical Association, Center for Civic Education, Constitutional Rights of Chicago, National Council for History Education, National Council for Social Studies. In short, when you see the list of the 15 professional organizations, they influence both federal and state social studies standards. The goal of this document was to provide guidance to states on the concepts, skills, and disciplinary tools necessary to prepare students for college, career, and civic life. By focusing less on historical content, making the content more general, and focus on inquiry-driven, real-world, problem-based skills. When you do receive your packets from the board secretary, you'll see, like, for example, you'll go to like page 44, they'll give examples, and you'll notice compared to the current state standards, excuse me, have a lot of content. We're hearing through the grapevine that these upcoming standards that we're going to see in January, and there's going to be a public review period in March, are going to be less content, it's going to be very generalized, and a lot of skills and inquiry-based instruction. So to make a long story short, to better prepare for this, it's what I need to focus on with the middle school teachers. And additionally, increase activities that will eventually align with the standards that allow these students to pursue content that is meaningful to their real-world experiences. Regarding grades 9 through 12, here's our scope and sequence. Again, State of New Jersey plays a heavier emphasis on United States history. In 9th grade, the standards currently indicate that we have to cover ancient civilization all the way to 1450 by the time a child hits 9th grade. In 9th grade, we then must focus from 1450 to present, while focus on different regions of the world as well. For United States history, we start around the year 1607. The summer assignment actually deals with European exploration and colonization. The content begins inside the classroom in the year 1607 with the settlement of Jamestown, and then goes all the way to 1895. And then in 11th grade, United States history 2 goes from 1895 to present. State of New Jersey requires 2 years of U.S. history and 1 year of world history for a student to graduate. Our strengths. 1, our course offerings with AP and electives. I'm going to go over a little bit about that. Small learning communities, we have 2. The Institute of Humanities program in grades 9 through 10, and the Institute for Civic and Citizen Empowerment, also known as ICE, grades 10 through 12. Fusion technology to increase engagement and enhance student learning. We incorporate Stanford University's Reading Like a Historian. We emphasize investigation and inquiry. We heavily teach primary and secondary source analysis, and we consistently develop and reinforce analytical writing skills. Areas I like to see growth at the high school. The first one is, and I'm working with building administration, is the need for more common planning time for greater collaboration among social studies teachers. Unless it's through departmental time on a Monday after school, there is very little collaboration time for the social studies teachers. Additionally, once the standards, again, we're able to see it, see what the state's asking for us, more real-world project-based assessments. And then I want to see more consistent practices and limited English proficient social studies classes. Teachers are currently receiving training from the ESL supervisor as well as outsourced providers. Now, our AP program. We offer a number of AP classes. First, AP US History in grade 11, AP Psychology in grade 11 and 12, AP Government in grade 12, and AP World History in grade 12. Now, we have a lot of internal data for social studies, but regarding external data, we don't have a lot. We have the NJSLA test where 2 historical literacy components are included in the elements, but that's about it. So externally, we go by AP data. And so a 5 is the highest you can score in an AP exam. A 1 is the lowest you can score. I say this to building administrators. I was going into this year probably the second most senior AP teacher in West Orange Public Schools. And what I have said to other teachers and building administrators and administrators in other schools, when you look at AP data, you don't compare 2 AP classes inside the same school. You don't compare AP Comp with AP US. They're apples and oranges. No. What you do here is you take a state like New Jersey, top 5 state every year. Education system, one of the top in the nation. You look at what our kids do. You look at what the state does. And that's the barometer. And I'm about to show you our data from all these classes this past school year. For AP Government, the average student that took the class in West Orange scored a 3.63 out of 5. For those who do not know, usually if a student scores a 3 or higher on the AP exam, and there's some exceptions depending on the university, you'll receive college credit. The state of New Jersey scored a 3.16. But we're still not done with the data. You see, we also have the global score. That's the other states and the international schools. And they scored a 2.73. But we're not done. You see, percentage of students scoring a 3 or higher at West Orange in that class, 83.3%. For the great state of New Jersey, 67.8%. That's AP Gov. So let's go to AP US. Average score, 3.78 out of 5. State, 3.12 out of 5. The global score, 2.7 out of 5. Percentage of our students scoring a 3, 87%. State of New Jersey, 66. Now let's go to AP Psychology. Average score, 4.21 out of 5. The state, 3.23 out of 5. Global, 3.09 out of 5. Percentage of students scoring a 3, 96.1%. For New Jersey, 68.6%. And then finally, AP World. And now AP World is a little bit different. Let me just set this up. See, in world history, when we're going to compare the West Orange score to the global score, you have to understand, world history on the AP level, the students here are studying the history of China, Japan, Finland, Nigeria, Israel, Saudi Arabia. You can name the country. Our kids have to know their history. So how do our kids do, knowing other countries' history? Well, we scored a 3.55 out of 5. State, 3.1 out of 5. Now the global score, 2.75 out of 5. Percentage of students scoring a 3 or higher in AP World, 90.9%. For the state, 66.1%. Now, all this work that you see is not just the AP teachers. The AP teachers did phenomenal work. One word I'll use to describe all of them, as I said to one of the AP teachers today, they're all workaholics. They live to work. They give mock, many people don't know this in the general public. Our AP teachers give mock exams for 3.5 to 4 hours. They do it on a Friday. We book out the cafeteria. For the AP World students, I usually bought pizza. For the AP students, for the AP US History students, usually Mr. Bavarian and Ms. Skimman brought in chips, and water is a lot more than AP World. And so the kids sit down, they take the test for 3 to 4 hours, and then we grade it over a weekend. And we give it back to the kids and said, okay, this is what you would have scored in the national exam. This is what we got to work on. We've got 3 more weeks to get going. But it's not just the hard work of the AP teachers. You got to understand, this process begins all the way back in 5th and 6th grade. And now you're seeing that work pay off. Teaching social studies is collective. It is a team approach. Regarding our electives, we have law, rights and responsibilities, Europe in the modern age, the individual and society, history of race, class, gender, and ethnicity, cultural anthropology, money markets and the economy, modern America through the media, power and politics, which is civics. If you're interested in taking civics, there actually is 2 options for you. There's AP government, which is on the AP level, but a class that's open to all students is power and politics. It's an elective you could take as a junior and senior, and you get a taste of American civics. And then finally, Shaping Western Thought, which is we're switching the title, not next school year, but the following school year, into Honors Intro to Philosophy. I know there's a little bit made up of today on social media about philosophy. I just want to go over this. We do have a philosophy class. It's actually quite popular. We have 2 full sections. Some of the topics we cover in this is the philosophical method, Socrates and Plato, the allegory of the cave, ethics, applied ethics, free will, epistemology, philosophy of the mind, personal identity, aesthetics, philosophy of science, and political philosophy. Now I want to go through some of the mandates, beginning with a mandate that's actually very, 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 very important to me and to the teachers here at West Orange, as all 3 mandates are, the Amistad mandate. The Amistad mandate was passed in 2002, and the mandate basically says African American history should be woven throughout the curriculum through the months of September through June. And so what happens here is in our curriculum, we have 4 key strands there that are incorporated in grades K through 3. History, culture, perspectives, civics, government, human rights, geography, people and the environment, economics, innovation, technology. And you'll find these strands in the Amistad mandate. Additionally, teachers in grades K to 5 have access to Amistad accounts and the website. I'm going to go a little bit about the website. All social studies teachers in grades 6 through 12 have active Amistad accounts, which the teachers use to access the Amistad website. Teachers have attended Amistad training at Kean University. Teachers have attended the Amistad Summer Institute. Within each grade level curriculum, lessons from the Amistad are embedded, and a list of support books from Amistad are provided. And if we don't have the book, the teacher just tells us and I purchase it. Alignment with Amistad is observed through lesson plans, teacher observations, walkthroughs, class activities, PBAs, and out-of-district training. And this past week, NJEA convention, Dr. Rappelet, as well as Governor Murphy, announced what is called the Amistad Journey Initiative. What the Amistad Journey Initiative is the state's going to work on providing better funding, more adequate funding, to align with the mandate, and also to give more resources for teaching the mandate. Additionally, I'm not sure how they're going to do it, but they're setting up a system where educators will have the ability to travel up and down the eastern seaboard of the United States, as well as travel to Western Africa to learn more about the history. They announced it just about 2 weeks ago, and we're still waiting guidance regarding it. On our social studies website, on the district page, we have our Amistad curriculum alignment. Let me just click on it. Where you'll see by grade level, K to 3, our content integration, and how it aligns to the Amistad curriculum. It goes by grade level. scroll down just a little bit more. And then there are the list of books of, from the Amistad mandate. Yes, sir. Absolutely, sir. So let's go right off the bat. All right, so the it says right here, the elementary social studies curriculum is designed to give students the opportunity to develop their sense of place in their community, state, nation, and global village. The curriculum will allow students to meet the highest levels dictated by the NJSLA, or SS Social Studies Standards. West Orange Elementary Social Studies students will examine the following concepts: democratic ideas, cultural diversity, economic development, global perspective, participatory citizenship. Multicultural approach to teaching social studies is fostered in the curriculum, as is the integration of literacy to promote rich social studies experience. To provide continuity of concept development, 4 key strands are incorporated throughout the K-3 social studies curriculum, which are history, culture, perspectives, civics, government, and human rights, geography, people and the environment, economics, innovation, technology. Now, alignment to the Amistad curriculum. Unit 1, Social Studies Skills. This unit will emphasize skill-based learning, reading, interpreting maps, census data, graphs, charts, timelines, primary and secondary sources, and points of view. Teachers will introduce the students to the historian's craft, interpretation, and narration. And the early elementary students develop the skills of working with maps, charts, graphs, timeline. This provides the foundation for students later on as they learn to understand how to utilize historical evidence and indicate bias, point of view. And the reason some historical sources were created. As students move through to the middle and high school, focus shifts to the deep analysis of historical sources to determine bias, point of view, and historical context. Students chronicle the importance of evidence in understanding the past. Now, this is the Amistad website, where teachers have accounts to. This is where you will find the Amistad resources. The website is a resource for teachers to use. What happens here is the teacher will click on social studies. I'll ask for your username and password to put it in. And then right here, you all have a list of activities. I clicked on the unit establishment of a new nation and independence. You might see videos, learning activities, assessments. This right here, for example, is what a teacher would find. Here are some of the suggestive materials and activities. And then a teacher will choose the resources that he or she wants to incorporate into the curriculum and into their teaching inside the classroom. The next mandate is the Holocaust Genocide Education K-5. This also goes to grades 6 to 12. In grades K-5, the topics of good citizenship, anti-bullying, acceptance of others, kindness, belonging, liberty, justice, equality, diversity, as well as gender, racial, and religious discrimination people have experienced or taught. You'll see in the elementary level books such as Refugee, The Boy Who Fought Hitler, Bullies Never Win are used within the classroom. Moving on to grades 6 through 12, you're going to see cross-curricular lessons between ELA and social studies, in particular the works of literature. Then Holocaust and genocide presentations occur, which include guest speakers. 7th grade teachers, even though the curriculum is on American civics, they spend at least a week studying the Holocaust with their students. The grade 8 teachers teach about genocide through world history. Up at the high school, the Holocaust, as well as the Armenian, Cambodian, Rwandan, and the genocide in Darfur are studied in grades 9, 11, and 12. And in 10th grade, U.S. history examines the relationship between the colonist Americans and the Native Americans. And we also have our compliance with the Holocaust and Genocide Mandate, where it's pretty much set up the same way: the grade, lesson, school activities, and the resources that are used by grade level. Okay, the next mandate is the one that was passed January 31st, 2019. This is the history of persons with disabilities and LGBT persons included in middle and high school. The law reads, Board of Education shall include instruction on the political, economic, and social contributions of persons with disabilities and lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people in an appropriate place in the curriculum of middle school and high school students as part of the district's implementation of the New Jersey Student Learning Standards. So, going on to the next slide, the law specifies that the content be included as part of each district's implementation of New Jersey Student Learning Standards in Social Studies beginning in the fall of 2020. The State Department of Education has agreed to set guidelines for the new curriculum. However, implementation will be up to each school district. Now, as I said that, still to this day, the DOE has not released guidelines or endorsed specific organizations and or accompanying curricular frameworks. I'm of the hope that when the new standards are released, that this is included, so we can go about the mandate and incorporate it to the best extent possible. So what are we going to do here in West Orange from September 2020 to June 2021? We're going to develop formal goals, objectives, and expectations for all state mandates. We're going to revise the social studies standards as instructed. We're going to develop age-appropriate middle and high school curricular lessons for integration into social studies that address bullying to include people with disabilities and LGBT people, accurately portray the contributions and accomplishments of people with disabilities and LGBT people in each of the specified structures, review middle and high school curriculum and resources specifically to examine and ensure that people with disabilities and LGBT people are, one, accurately portrayed in the political, economic, and social contributions, two, not represented in a biased or discriminatory way, represented to include contributions and accomplishments in each of the specified structures, and provide ongoing professional learning opportunities for staff and students. Now, some of the community relationships the Social Studies Department has. First, Holocaust survivors present to our students both at the high school and in the middle schools. In fact, one of our speakers last year, the book that's based upon his family and experience they suffered from, I believe it was I think it was in Poland, is being made into an upcoming movie. He spoke to our students. It was very powerful. Some of our number of our students cried. A number of students came up and shook his hand. He remembers it as a 4-year-old and the experience his family went through. Veterans speak within our classes. We have veterans from the Korean War, the Vietnam War. We also just had one of our own students who graduated from West Orange who fought in Afghanistan, came by and spoke into our social studies classes. The West Orange Historical Society has been at the high school giving lectures on General McClellan to our students, as well as New Jersey's role in the Civil War. World History students work with seniors at Daughters of Israel. We do this yearly. We're enhancing our relationship with Luna Stage. The Institute for the Humanities, students learn how to use the archives, actual real archives, real actual primary sources, how to go through the research process an actual historian does. Sometimes students are of the false belief that just reading a secondary book is what a historian does. No, that sets up the story. So how do you find the primary sources? How do you locate them? How do you use them in a college paper? Well, that's what we do through the Institute of Humanities, where we take them to the archives at Morristown National Historical Park, otherwise known as Washington's headquarters. We are currently working on enhancing our relationship with the Thomas Edison National Historical Park. On December 3rd, the majority of the supervisors are going down to the National Historical Park. They're going through with all the supervisors, each in their different areas, the resources they have, so we can enhance the relationship between the historical park and the schools. Additionally, both of our AP US history classes will be using the research facilities at the historical park for the research papers that they complete towards the end of the year. Then what's going to happen is the 2 AP teachers are going to select 3 phenomenal papers. These students are going to present their findings to the West Orange community at an event in June down at the Edison Historical Park. And then what we're also working on, I don't want to give false hope. It might not happen this spring, but if it doesn't happen this spring, it's happening next spring. We are bringing the Edison Historical Park into the 4th grade classrooms, in particular with the unit Economy and Innovation in New Jersey. That's what we're going to be working on. So if it doesn't happen this spring, it's definitely happening next spring. We're already laying down the framework for it. Moving forward with social studies and my vision for the next couple of years, what I would like to do. All right, first, I want to revise the curricula based on the new standards. I want to budget for Amistad in-district professional training, in particular on the elementary level. I want to bring these professionals here to West Orange instead of us going to Kane. That way, more teachers can be touched by the training, and I think that training is incredibly important. We are exploring Holocaust and Genocide class, AP macroeconomics, African American history course. Steve Olszewski, the former supervisor, was working on this when he left to take over to become the assistant principal at Gregory. I have his files, and I've seen the schools he was talking to, so we can also get moving with the process. And finally, a Latin Spanish American history course. I'd like to incorporate as well. All right, now the New Jersey Student Learning Standards and the Social Studies curriculum. And let me give you a little bit of a quick history of the New Jersey Standards up until this time. The New Jersey Standards that pretty much are in effect right now as I'm talking to were really created about 20 years ago. And they went through some revision process in 2009 and then a little bit of 2014. And to make a long story short, the standards place a lot of content onto the students with a very short time frame. So if I click on this, I'm just going to go to the 8th grade Ancient World to the Renaissance, which is a lot of content the state requires a child to know. Here we go. Okay. So, by the end of grade 8, the state is saying that a child who sits in a social studies class in New Jersey must know the beginning of human society, Paleolithic and Neolithic ages. And if we keep going, if you see the indicators to the right, that's the content they have to know. Now, I will tell you this. I am, I think, the only teacher on the social studies staff that taught both world history sections, plural, and U.S. history sections. I'm telling you, as a world history teacher, my frustration always was there was not enough time to cover the content asked. Students want to explore. As a teacher, you want to go into detail with them. The state doesn't really provide that opportunity under these standards. In U.S. history, they do, but not for world. And that puts 8th grade teachers and 9th grade teachers in very precarious positions. So what we do here is a little bit of the curriculum process. The curriculum process is a 3-day training for the curriculum writers. Then the writers, we talk about unpacking the standards, where they basically analyze what you're seeing in front of you to create a curricular document that not only aligns with the state of New Jersey, but has best practices to teach a content, at least have a game plan for the content to the teachers moving forward. Right here is an example of what a curricular doc would look like. This is the 8th grade cover page. What happens here is for the teacher, you have your course, grade, time, quick overview. In here are the units itself. What we actually did was on this doc, if I go to the bottom page, it gives basically a sample of what the 8th grade course should look like, and we pretty much followed the template as well. And then finally, I want to just go briefly over what we're looking at, because I think we're about to see a radical change in the social studies standards. Again, I believe the content's going to become very general, with a lot of skill and inquiry based. Now, the grade bands are going to change. As I'm talking to you, State of New Jersey says by the end of grade 4, a child must know this, and by the end of grade 8, a child must know that, and by the end of grade 12, a child must know this. Well, that's going away. The first thing you're going to notice, it's going to say K to 2, 3 to 5, 6 to 8, 9 to 12. Those are going to be the new grade bands. And that could be better for us because it might make the content more manageable that we have to cover. However, here's a timeline that we know of. To the State Board of Education, the social studies standards will be given to them in January 2020. I would assume this is a public document that we could see. In March of 2020 is going to be a public comment session. My understanding is there'll be sessions throughout the state for everybody to provide their input. Now, what we don't know is when it will be phased in. We've been given a timeline between September of 2020 and September of 2022. The New Jersey Social Studies Supervisor Association is of the opinion we're probably looking more towards 2021, 2022 than 2020. But again, we just don't know. Thank you for allowing me to give a quick opportunity of our program. And I look forward to your questions.
All righty. Thank you, Mr. F.
You're welcome.
Fabulous job, you
Thank
and your
you.
team, and Mr. Mendez. Always enjoy having the curriculum presentations. That's something that I'm kind of passionate about. So I have a few questions.
Absolutely.
So the 7-year subscription plan,
Yeah.
as you said, it's a 5-year cycle at the state level. So how is it that we're 2 years beyond?
So it is a 5-year cycle for us to revise. I guess 7 years ago, when we signed on, they subscribed to a 7-year plan. However, we are now looking at the social studies curriculum. I think that this has been a project, though, that's been happening for the past few years, right? Mr. Olszewski began that work last year, really surveying teachers, finding out what it is that they need from their materials, and now we're going through the formal process. When we sign on to subscriptions from now on, we cannot do it on a 7-year plan. We're going to have to do the 5-year plan.
Okay, great. And a few meetings back, I asked about incorporating the study of West Orange at the 3rd grade level with communities. Are we planning on doing that?
Yes, we are. Very much so. In fact, I'm making a note of it right now.
Can you talk about what we're already doing?
Yes. In fact, I just received an email from the mayor's office this morning, I believe, to Dr. Cascone, setting up for the students to go to the mayor's office as well as the West Orange Police Department. Additionally, sorry. Good. Okay. I'm speaking with teachers, in particular grades 3 and 4, about greater involvement with the history of West Orange, because a little bit about the history lesson of West Orange. First of all, more governors have been from West Orange than any other town in the state's history. 2, McClellan, General McClellan, was a founding father of West Orange. He's pretty important in American history. 3, the American Revolution, which we hit on grade 4 and grade 5. New Jersey residents have to realize, in particular West Orange residents, this is ground zero for the Revolution. Okay, people don't realize, they connect Virginia to the Civil War. That's true. But New Jersey, Virginia is to the Civil War as New Jersey is to the American Revolution. More battles were fought here than any other. If you lived in Orange, New Jersey back then, the culmination of all the oranges, you would have seen British soldiers walking down your streets. That is a fact. You would have seen American soldiers walking down the streets. That's a fact. More likely your neighbors would be pro-British, thus Tory Corner, than they would be pro-patriot. But then here's the thing. Once the British retreat to Manhattan, and you live here, where's your loyalty? Because 2/3 of all residents would have been a supporter of the British. It destroyed families. I don't think Americans anywhere understand the concept of how damaging the Revolution was. And we live in the smack middle of it. And that needs to be emphasized a little bit.
I am so excited that you're so excited.
Oh, thank you.
And the supervisors have a trip that you're organizing to where?
Thomas Edison story.
Yeah, so can you talk about that a bit and what you're doing?
Yes. The Thomas Edison Historical Park, I've been, first met Mr. DeGroff in Dr. Cascone's office back in August. And I've been working with West Orange schools as a teacher since '01. And I do remember there used to be trips going to the Edison Historical Park. And I don't know when it stopped. I honestly don't know when it stopped. So I was sitting with Mr. DeGroff, and I'm realizing they have all these great resources. And I'm sitting there like, I don't think we're doing anything really with them. Why aren't we doing anything with them? We should be doing it. It's Thomas Edison,
Yes.
for crying out loud, here in West Orange. So, and we have the grade 4 economy and innovation. And I'm just there like, for New Jersey history, we're going to leave out Thomas Edison from economy. What? And innovation? It makes no sense.
So where are we going?
So here's where we're going. Okay. We are having, again, all the supervisors go down there. We're going to figure out how best to use the resources by department. So that way, if you're in the business department, you might use different resources than if you're social studies. And if you're social studies, you might use different than the ELA. And then the ELA might be different than the engineering department, and so forth. So I figured to get the supervisors down there. They'd be the ones that would best know how to use those resources in the grades, K to 5 and 6 to 12.
Fabulous, fabulous. Civics.
Yep.
So I see we're getting there in middle school and high school. What are we doing at the elementary level with civics?
We have to do more.
Okay.
That's my solution. I mean, at first it starts with like the child and the children's community. There is the 3rd grade trip to the mayor's office, and we start to lay the foundations But I think from a curricular standpoint, especially when the new standards come out, that's something I'm definitely
Wanna
looking
take
at.
a look at it?
Absolutely.
Fabulous. All right, I have a question about the institutes, the small learning communities. So we have one for 9, 10, and 11, 12. Do the students in the first one automatically move into the second one?
No, they're two different communities. So if you're in the Institute of Humanities, you can apply to the program 8th grade into 9th grade or 9th grade into 10th grade. It is only for 2 years. Now, the Institute of Humanities is a combination of English, history, cross-curricular work with art history. The Institute of Civic Empowerment is a social studies only small learning community, which students have access to grades 10, 11, and 12. Some students, like when the IH program expires, because it only goes for grades 9 and 10, some choose to enter Institute of Civic Empowerment. They apply. There's an application process. Some choose not to because they're both interest-based. We find that the students who want to major in history, law, political science, more gravitate towards ICE.
Okay, we may need to change that acronym, huh?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Small learning communities. I think that's something that we could take a look at too, across disciplines. So maybe there's some room to do some further expansion there, because I know that a number of students thrive in the smaller learning communities than in the traditional schedule. The AP results, fabulous, fantastic. I would like to, at some later date, look at the distribution of 3s, 4s, and 5s.
Yep.
I would also like to see us compare ourselves to similar districts, looking at the state and global, very good. But if we find some benchmark districts like ourselves and see how we compare there, I think that would give us another stretch. But what we've done is phenomenal, and kudos to the staff and the students. The community, you talked about getting involved with the community. One idea that I've seen used in several districts is that and this isn't just for social studies, but that a speakers bureau is developed, or a database of speakers. And it can be community members or community members who know other people who have expertise in different areas. And it's just a database that teachers can go on and pull in speakers so that we have a representation across disciplines, across ethnicities. So I think that would be something pretty good for us to have. And I really do like the NJDOE grade bands, as we're looking forward to the new social studies, because it's impossible to teach all of that and teach it effectively. So, kudos to those who try.
Thank you.
So I think somebody has awakened and figured out that you can't get all of that in. So again, thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Mordecai.
First of all, thank you very much for all your hard work, and I will echo Ms. Triggscale's comments. Kudos to the students. Those scores are amazing, My first question is, the presentation is K to 12. Now, I would assume there's something happening at the pre-K level on a lower scale, whether it's cut, color, paste, or connect the dots of a map or something like that. I'd just like to see what's happening at the preschool level as well.
Okay.
I like your vision for the next year. But I have a couple questions. So when you talk about the social studies K-5 courses of study, and you mentioned early American history, how far back are you going?
In New Jersey, we go back to the Native American tribes that settled in New Jersey. So we're going like 1400s.
Going to the Norsemen? You're doing all that?
No, we're not going. We're not going that far.
Okay.
And then same for in 5th grade, Native American civilizations outside New Jersey, and then going towards the Revolution.
Okay. I like that the ELA is infused. I know the New Jersey Science Standards has also infused ELA, so that's great. I like that you're going to look into African American history course. I know Mr. Osowski was looking into that as well, and I've been pushing for that for years. But and Latino history as well, and Hispanic history. What about Asian American history? As our world becomes more and more diverse, we have to touch on various demographics.
Excellent point.
So, okay. When you mentioned common planning time and collaboration among teachers, I just wanted to clarify. Is that gen ed teachers, special ed teachers, and ESL teachers?
Up at the high school? Yeah, it's going to be, because what happens here is if I'm a teacher, due to scheduling or contractual duties and so forth, there's really not common planning time built into the schedule as there is, let's say,
I understand.
in the middle schools.
I just want to make sure that those areas are covered, gen ed, spec ed, and ESL teachers. I used to be on the professional development committee for the district when we were breaking into this, small learning communities, and that was always a challenge to make sure there are inclusion teachers involved in the common planning time so that, it could be a real partnership in the classroom.
Part of that work happens also during curriculum development. We have all of those teachers in the room so that we could have the vertical and the articulation across departments. We certainly need to have that for common planning. Our first step is certainly to have everybody contributing to the curriculum development across.
Yeah, we just have to make sure the articulation's there. I know this past summer and fall, there's been a lot of talk about the 1619 project, and we've been emailing a lot to Dr. Cascone about how that will be included in our curriculum somewhere, and I'd love to see that included. And I know there's a lot of speakers around for that, and as Ms. Trigg-Scales mentioned, a bank of speakers. I know Mr. Moore has speakers, because we had introduced that at different levels for different courses. I don't know if you called it a bank of speakers, but I recall for paralegal studies bringing in council president at the time, Renard Barnes, who was an attorney, and people in different areas for different courses in the high school. So that bank may already be available through the principal's office. I think
understanding the priority the board has in that topic and the interest, and perhaps just kind of the cursory address of that aspect, that mandate in this presentation. Perhaps we might consider having a follow-up presentation after the new year specifically on the Amistad mandate, and taking a deeper dive into those curricular connections. I know we kind of had that kind of mile-high crosswalk, but kind of getting down into the nitty-gritty of how we're crosswalking between the day-to-day curriculum and that mandate, I think might be of interest to the board.
Yes, that would be great. A follow-up to that question, starting next year, New Jersey CUSAC, we could gain or lose points based on how we've rolled out the Amistad. So I want you to pay particular attention to that. We don't know what that's going to look like yet next year, so I just wanted you to be aware of that. When you talked about literary sources, I actually went on the website to make sure that the list was updated, so I have a 18-page literary resource. But at the same time, I wanted to know if you're going through that list or if you're also pulling other sources, because in reading that list, I thought of a book by Isabel Wilkerson, which is called The Warmth of Other Suns, and that tells of the Great Migration following three central characters across American history, going from south to north, and the things that they encountered, and that's first-person oral history. So I don't know if you want to take a look at that.
I definitely do. Mrs. Mordecai, can you say the book again?
The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson. What else did I have? Oh, you mentioned the Keene Diversity Council and the trainings there at the Amistad. I know I connected you and Dr. Cascone to the current person there. I hope you follow through on that.
Yeah, I spoke actually today on the phone with Dr. Toby.
Wonderful. And she's a West Orange resident, so
Yeah.
she's always happy to help. And on another connection, you mentioned the journeys that Governor Murphy has now announced as well as a commissioner. In our district, Dr. Calfani is the head of the Essex County College. He's the director, actually, of African Studies at Essex County, and he does regular trips to Africa. So if you could make that connection with him, I know we already have a partnership with Essex County College for various other subjects at the high school, but this could be another connection for you to jump on the bandwagon and maximize whatever savings you can with taking a trip with Essex County College, as opposed to going it alone.
Thank you.
You can,
If I might just add, NJEA at the convention last week
announce funding, yes.
announced
Yes, I
that
was gonna
they
go
will
there
be.
too.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, they announced some funding, but I don't know if that's the total funding that we actually need. So that's great that they're doing that, and that is actually across the state. I don't know what that application process will look like with NJEA, but that's a great start, and thank goodness for that. I noticed that you cited Chapter 35, Title 18A for the LGBT, but you didn't cite the 18A for the others, for the Holocaust or for Amistad. So it'd be good if you add that when you do an update later on. And let's see, my final comment. I'm glad to see that we're again looking into partnering with Luna Stage, because there is a wealth of resources there. From time to time, I've attended their plays. I think one I attended recently was actually Harriet Tubman. It was a one-person play, and that was really good. And as we go through this process now, where we have the Harriet Tubman movie out, and I'm not sure if you know that Harriet Way in West Orange is named after Harriet Tubman.
I did not know.
So we actually have stops along the way through West Orange, not just General McClellan and Prospect Street, but Harriet Way in West Orange. So it would be good to have the kids do a historical tour. But Mr. Fagan has all that information, so when you go through the West Orange Historical Commission, he has all that information for you, actually all the stops. And I believe the last slave in Essex County lived in West Orange.
Oh.
And they were going to do a marker somewhere in Main Street for him. I forget the exact placement on Main Street, but they were going to do a marker for him. It hasn't been done as yet, but we do have a wealth of history, I agree with you, and we need to look into that. And over the years, the kids have been going to Edison, but they stopped when they were doing the construction. Actually have not been since they upgraded it, but there was a couple of years there where it was closed, so maybe that's why they stopped. Yeah. But kudos to you. Thank you very much. To you and your team, Mr. Mendez. This was lovely. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Robertson.
Well, Mr. Figueredo, Mr. Figueredo, you already know that I'm president of your fan club.
Thank you.
And you did so much to cultivate passion for history and social studies with my son and many other kids I know, and I enjoy our conversations.
Thank you.
I love your vision. Really inspired by the direction of the department, and also we have so many. As you look at teachers coordinating more and communicating more, we have so much talent. We have so many amazing social studies teachers and some real characters who really bring it to life, like Mrs. Romanchuk or Mrs. Horowitz, or just so many of them really doing a wonderful job.
I was saying to, I don't mean to interrupt, Mr. Robinson, but
No, please.
we did the last training with the 46 teachers, and I said, listen, because remember this time last year, the game plan was this time last year I was back in the classroom.
Yeah.
And then I did the observations, and with the observations being last year that I might be going back into the classroom, and I said, okay, one of the best darn teachers coming up, because I saw what everybody else was doing inside these classrooms, because as a teacher, you really don't have that option. Next thing you know, I'm sitting in, whether it be Studnicki's classroom in Liberty, or Romanchuk's, or Colabella's, and I'm just like, all the great stuff these people are doing, I would have no idea until I became supervisor. I'm looking at all their different techniques, I'm just like, wow. Just wow.
A lot of talent. That's a great people resource. This is fantastic. And some of the things that Ms. Mordecai was just pointing to, we have stops along the way. There's actually a house right off of Mount Pleasant that was part of the Underground Railroad. Now, the owner of the house doesn't want people stopping by all the time, but I'm sure there's a way to arrange something. They supposedly had tunnels still under there.
Really?
And, I think, too, that the Edison trips were going on for quite a while, and actually, I think both Jared and Joel studied Lenape, about the Lenape Indians, and they were doing the trips to the mayor's office and all that. But I think that you've also brought in some new elements, like realizing, this is where General McClellan was, right? As well as taking a walk through the experience from the Revolutionary War times. And we still have to have the conversation about why the Revolutionary War was a civil war and the Civil War was a Revolutionary
Yeah, that's
War.
right.
That's
Sure
right.
do.
But no, this just fantastic. I'm looking forward to everything you're going to do with that. So look too at, talked about that. Okay, you already know this is going to be a hot button for me, but the 8th grade.
Yeah.
And as I looked at, and I understand that you feel the same frustration with it, but as I looked at, 6th grade is very focused, 7th grade is very focused, and then in 8th grade, at one place it states they're covering 12,000 years. When at back to school night, in some classes the teachers were saying 5,000 years, others were saying 3,000 years. But at best, it was an attempt to cover a century a day. If you're lucky, a century every 3 days. And that's more accelerated than most accelerated college course. So one of the things I was looking for is I was listening to not only my daughter's teacher's lessons plans, but looking at some of the others, is there a way to do a better job of, since it's impossible to cover all of it well, but to drill down a little bit more during key periods and talk about what those takeaways are, what the big ideas are, and how they affect us today. How does the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt, or the birth of, or the cradle of civilization, Mesopotamia, how does it affect us today? Or Alexander conquering Egypt and all the way to India. How does some of these things, and part of that, I looked back, I actually read the state standards, and one of the ideas was talking about the ramifications of history and how it's relevant for us even today, not just as something that happened in the past. And that's something I'd like to see a little bit more of. And I know I just got tidbits of it while the teachers were reviewing some key things. But I was concerned that there was so much of an emphasis on kind of critical thinking exercises and understanding you can't cover all the content, but it'd be great if there was more kind of a relevant capturing of the concepts within these critical thinking exercises, the historical concepts, and their relevance for today. Looking at, I agree on civics with both Ms. Trigg-Scales and Ms. Mordecai, that there should be more civics K-5. And that's an opportunity where, when they're already looking at, it's easy to make things tangible about, who the presidents were and and to be able to understand just certain basic things, not going back to like Schoolhouse Rock necessarily, but there are a lot of elements that could be made a little bit more concrete. And even looking at the high school level, actually, I'm already in love with everything that was going on. IH, definitely changed the acronym for the Civics Institute, but I think that there's so many wonderful things going on there. Now, when looking at the AP, I think it's amazing that we are among the top in the averages in a state that's in the top 5. At the same time, similarly, I think to something that Ms. Trigg-Scales says, I'd like to see what the 4s and the 5s were, because actually a lot of colleges, because it's a financial issue, they lose money when they give away those credits, right? Are really giving credits mostly to the kids with the 4s or the 5s. Some cases it's 5s only, some cases it's 4 and 5. So I would really like to see what percentage of our kids are the 4s and the 5s, and I would like to see some data as to who those kids are. And we talked also with Dr. Cascone about drilling down to kind of tracking, how the kids are progressing coming up from elementary all the way through high school, and who those kids are. Where do they go, and who are they, from looking at the demographics, et cetera. But really, I'd like to see definitely the 4s and the 5s, but impressed very much with the fact that we are by far outperforming the state and the global statistics. Also excited about the high school electives, particularly law, as well as power and politics in America. That's got to be a course that's constantly evolving. I'd like to see what those discussions look like. And philosophy. I understand we have some very popular philosophy course at the high school, but I actually have to agree with Bijan a little bit. I watched them growing up, that The only place where philosophy was really entering the conversation at one point was in HAP. And they were reading, I forget the name of the book that they were reading, where you see examples of different types of philosophy, and then you had to write about, what philosophy would you want to espouse and why. But philosophy was pretty much absent from middle school outside of, HAP, now G&T. And from the other elements of some of the high school courses, certainly for IH, it's getting in there, and for the Civics Institute, it's in there. But philosophy, I think, understanding not only ethics but different philosophical schools would really, I think, be very helpful as part of that global understanding, global community. What philosophies are influencing different cultures, whether they come from a religious base or they come from some other philosophical base. Looking at Amistad, I think we do a fairly good job with it, but I think there's so much more that we can do, and I haven't had a chance to really dig down a little deeper in the reading list. Here's a silly question, though. Have we ever had an Amistad movie night? We have a program named after it. Do the kids all know what Amistad was about? And could we have something like that for middle school? It would be a bit much, I think, for elementary school, but for middle school, and there's so much in a culture that's oriented so much visually into video. We should be looking, while I'm always for them reading more, looking at what other video content we could be incorporating and integrating in here. Holocaust. This actually came up in a Girl Scouts in our Silver Award meetings. And a couple of the kids who had just been through their bat mitzvahs and had to do their deep dives in various aspects of Judaism were raised the concern that they didn't really feel that the Holocaust is present much, certainly not in elementary school and very little in middle school. And they were able to cite where they did encounter it. And of course, at Roosevelt, the big culmination of it is the annual, event that Mr. Wecht puts on, that leads. But it just was absent from a lot of things. I know when Jared was in elementary school, he wanted to read a lot of Holocaust literature. That was something he took up, but I didn't see it so much integrated, beyond the Devil's Arithmetic maybe, and one or two things. I saw it more integrated on the English side than I did as much on the social studies side. So it's something I'd like to definitely see more of. That's about it. I mean, I think that you're a star, and you have a great department and such a great team, and I love your vision. And you have some real challenges with state standards. I totally understand that. And I forgot, Latin American and Spanish-speaking history, Latin American and Spanish-American history course. While there are no standards like Amistad for that yet, certainly that's become something, if we haven't seen how relevant it is, we should. A substantial portion of American history was shaped by this history, and it's the standards aren't as great in emphasizing that, but I'm glad that we're looking at exploring. It's not only a course, but I'd like to look at how we can integrate that history more into our existing curriculum. But thank you for everything you're doing, and I'm so excited about the energy and the ideas and everything that you're bringing.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Robertson. Thank you.
Ms. Merklinger.
So in the interest of time, I'm going to keep this short. Just a few questions. So I'm glad to see the focus going back to West Orange history. I grew up with that, so I'm glad to see it's being looked at again. I got to do the Edison trip and the trip to town hall, and even got to sit in the jail cell and stuff like that. So I think those are fun things that I think are definitely more important to focus on with our students, especially in the younger grades, versus maybe putting some heavier things on them like civics, but that's just my opinion. I'm curious about the way the curriculum is being looked at. I know for the way the approach that was taken for math and ELA seemed more committee formulated with parents and folks involved. So I was just wondering about why the different approach for social studies. But other than that, I found the grades look great. I know I have a lot of my son's friends are in IH and ICE, and quite honestly, I don't see why we have to rename them, but that's another story. But I know those are great programs. And I know the system or the school district in terms of social studies set my son up to do great things with social studies. He loved it. So I thank you for that. But yeah, so just more about the approach to the curriculum and what the difference is.
So I'm going to touch base with Mrs. Venziano to go over the process she does with ELA, because I'm interested now myself. Our process was, and I have, I guess as either acting supervisor or now as supervisor, pretty much I've looked at K-12 and was working with the curriculum writers, and in fact I worked on as a teacher, I completed the US 1 curriculum under the new format. So basically in social studies, what happens here is we reach out to 2 or 3 teachers. Usually, let's say if it's middle school, we prefer that it be a teacher in each school. But we can't force teachers to write it, obviously. So sometimes they say yes, sometimes they say no. But regardless, what we do is after we go through the curriculum training with the teachers with the supervisor, or the teachers first by themselves, then with the supervisor with meetings, we make sure that all the teachers that are teaching it provide their input to it. So every teacher should have promoted. We always advise the teachers to take a look at it, give them lesson ideas, work together as a team. We'll make sure everybody, we go with vertical and horizontal articulation, we specifically look at. We want to make sure everybody's on the same path. But I'm going to reach out to Mrs. Venziano about the parental involvement that ELA does, because I'm very interested in it.
So, I'm sorry, the question is about curriculum development or the evaluation of the resources?
I think it's of the resources
Yeah.
for the curriculum
So it's more the
that were used.
resources.
So
Right.
I know, like for math, they had some forums or town hall meetings where there was presentations
okay.
about the 2 different pilots that were being done.
You raise an excellent point. 'Cause I actually was thinking about this the other day, because I looked at the makeup of the team back in 2011. It was a lot of teachers, and I was saying to myself, I was saying, you know, it's probably a very good idea to get parents on these resources on the committee. But we got the first meeting coming up this Thursday, and I really, in hindsight, I absolutely would have done that in hindsight. So that's a fault on my end. That's my learning
No.
experience as supervisor.
Not a fault, just something we can look at to incorporate into the next one.
Okay, thank you. Great
Oh.
point.
We still have an opportunity to do so. It's a
Right.
process, so we'll do
Yeah.
that.
Liaisons. Oh, not liaisons. Ms. Mordecai.
From something that Ms. Merklinger said, if you're going to include parents, one resource to think about, and I believe his son is at the high school, Elmani Viney, who is a West Orange resident, teaches African American studies in Piscataway High School. I know we just beat them in football a few weeks ago, so he may be a little sad about that, but he would be an excellent resource if you're going to pull parent input.
Okay, thank you.
And I can email you his contact if you don't have it.
If you could, that'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Liaisons.
So, like everyone else, we really enjoyed the presentation. We enjoyed looking at the highlights and successes of students and are excited about the trends moving forward. So on the moving forward with social studies slide, you talked about an interest in exploring the Holocaust classes, AP macroeconomics, and other studies that are more inclusive and diverse. And as Board of Ed liaisons, we just wanted to say that we would love to be a resource in this. So we are actively serving the students, and part of that is collecting surveys all the time. And so we'd love to create a survey to mass produce to the students. I don't know if having a survey being sent by students for students might be a little more effective than like a social studies department, but we are very active in like setting up a table during lunch and actually surveying the students to see if there's a demand for that. The next thing on the slide about the plans for September 20 to June 2021, you mentioned plans to include studies that included people with disabilities and LGBTQ people. We support this and believe it's about time, but we do want to acknowledge that because this will be new, we don't want students to feel like guinea pig. And so what I mean by this is that though you represent the social studies department, we believe that it's important to incorporate a sense of sensibility training to it. So because it is a new thing, and we assume that there will be students who fit into some of the groups like LGBTQ students and students with disabilities, we don't want them to feel singled out. I can speak personally, like in some classes, maybe being the only African American while studying slavery, I can relate to some instances where it's like, Darlene, what do you think about this? And we certainly don't want students of these communities feeling that way. So I think that that's a very important thing to consider. So we don't want the first time we test this new curriculum out to maybe be with those students, consider those things and how we would address these awkward moments and teach teachers how to teach that, because we don't want students feeling like guinea pigs and feeling like the token student in that class. And then my last comment relates to the civics approach. Being a student, being a senior, I've taken advantage of a lot of the AP courses and the electives here, and I think that they are very helpful. During the summer of this year, there was the Rhode Island civic lawsuit where students were actually so upset with the lack of civics in their schools that they created a lawsuit and actually plan to appeal until the Supreme Court. So I think it's important that West Orange is at the forefront of it and being promoting access and availability to it. But I think one question that I have is how are we actually, if we're looking at the C3 plan and our ideas of implementing these ideas in college, career, and beyond, how are we going to address the gap between what people think and what they do? If we're looking at voter trends, like many students are passionate, but they don't vote. And I'm not saying voting is the only way to practice civics, but how are we going to address this gap that doesn't seem to close?
Darlene, can you just reword that question for me so I can answer, please?
So I think that within the school, participating in these classes, people are able to talk about it more.
Right.
But when students graduate, is there anything we can do to make sure that they actually put this into action?
That's a great question, because we've had the West Orange Young Democrats have reached out to us prior to get more involvement. I've also been speaking with Rho Kappa and their extracurricular with Mr. Soul as one of the advisors, because it's important to not only social studies teachers, but I think for good civic moral engagement, that our students learn these skills and then they use these skills in real life circumstances. What's the point of learning civics if you're not going to exercise it? So we want to make sure of that.
I think also as we're developing curriculum, we're shifting away, strongly shifting away from just teaching knowledge and skills, and we're looking at teaching understanding. And a part of the facets for understanding is empathy, is really placing yourself in the understanding of making meaning and how we apply that directly to our thinking now, right? It's the meta. And so I think that by building the curriculum in a very deliberate way around understanding and empathy and how we affect change, how we make difference with action, versus getting emotional about a topic, let's say. So in class we can debate something and it can get very much a really good dialogue going or very good debate about it, but it's only in that moment, right? How do we transfer? How do we move it out of our position and what we feel about a topic to, well, what steps am I going to take and how can I personally effectuate change, and then planning toward that. And I think that's the shift that we're looking in the curriculum, in our curriculum, as well as the performance-based assessment. So now what do you do with that? And making those links to the community and making those links to some action projects is going to be critical for us.
On my part, So on my part, I just wanted to say first and foremost, I'm a former student of Mr. Figueiredo. And I can attest to his excellence in the classroom. I just wanted to congratulate you on your permanent position as the District Social Studies Supervisor for grades K through 12.
Thank you.
It's very well deserved for you. I just wanted to ask, how's your day? It's a running joke, and he won't tell us how his day is until June 20th, until school ends, and so I just wanted to ask.
I do everything I can not to tell them anything about me to the last day, so that way they figure out who they are. Because I don't want to, as a dominating adult influence, 4 times a week for 53 minutes, in particular with sophomores. I won't even tell them how my day is going or either own a loan more. I want them to know nothing about me, and then the last day I'll tell them as much as they want to know. That way I cannot influence their opinion. I present them the facts, they become their own people. And then by the last day, I'm not going to influence them. So here's how my day's going. My day's going well, but thank you for asking. More importantly, how's your day going?
It's going great. And so that just goes to attest to how unbiased and how great a supervisor that he could be. First question, I wanted to ask, looking at the data that you provided from the AP courses and our comparison to the first statewide and global-wide, and we could see how the amount of students that passed and got a 3 or higher, but I wanted to ask, what percentage of the students who take the class actually end up taking the exam? I know Mr. Palante, one of the guidance officers, was really forcing this kind of down this year, but I didn't see that much last year or the years before. So I just wanted to know, to see like if that was influencing our data.
No, at least for social studies, I can speak for social studies, I can't speak for the other courses. We have a high percentage of students who take it.
Okay.
We do. I don't know the exact numbers off the top of my head, I honestly don't, but it's usually a very high percentage for us.
Okay. I also wanted to ask, if we can't compare our NJSLA state testing, school testing, with those of the other states, you said, we didn't really have that kind of data to compare with other like regions. How could we compare these with the schools within our own district and within our own schools, like within elementary schools, and to see which ones are doing better and which ones are doing, not as much or as better as others are, and how we can work to even out these groups?
So is your question doing with the NJSLA exam?
That's peer group for AP.
Oh, the peer group for AP. Well, we have to look at the peer group for advanced placement. We know where we are compared to the state. I need to see, first of all, if College Board will release the scores of the other schools to us.
My question was actually about NJSLA and how we could compare it within our own district, so elementary schools compared to other elementary schools between grades, and to see how kind of we fluctuate between some school may be doing better in social studies in the 5th grade, and some school may be doing better in the 4th grade, and how we could compare it to even out this kind of scores.
That's an excellent point. I would say this, though, the NJSLA really does not test for social studies. They have elements, and only 2 elements is historical literacy. That's it. It's predominantly math and English.
Right, which speaks to the fact that we need to embed assessment into our curriculum, which is what we're working on, and then analyze our own assessment data and student performance with assessments that we generate here, because the NJSLA does only assess ELA and math, and in 2 grades, science.
Okay. And just some final closing comments. When you talked about AP World History, I know when we were watching the presentation for math and science, I think for one of the AP classes, AP Statistics, there was an offered extra lab that was added to that class. So are you guys looking into adding a lab for AP World History in order to give students that kind of extra time needed to go deeper into that kind of history?
I think you raise a phenomenal point. And if I had my way, absolutely. Absolutely. But something I need to talk to the building administration about, curriculum and instruction, to see if that's possible. Because right now, our science classes have lab. Math classes? Math classes have lab. So it's something for us to look at.
Okay. And finally, I know some science classes, such as Dynamics of Healthcare and Society, partner with Rutgers for testings at the end of the school year to see if students qualify for getting credits and for passing kind of college-level courses. I know some courses here at the high school offered, such as philosophy, are kind of courses that are offered also at college. But is there any push to kind of partner up with colleges and make this kind of testing at the end of the year so that we could see if students could qualify for credits and could qualify for benefits if they do join partnering colleges like Rutgers?
Yeah, right now I was actually on the phone with Dr. Toby today discussing doing that with Kean University, where Kean University initially will offer classes here for students to take, and they could gain college credit if they earn a certain amount of grade through the professors at Kean University to be hosting the classes here. So it's not just Kean University. I want to spread this out to other universities as well and take advantage of this. When it comes to usually in the past, there's not necessarily a test. that the students take to get the college credit, as much as it is they sit in the class and they then attend the university, they gain that college credit if they decide to attain that university. It's traditionally what has happened. It usually goes through the guidance department under Ms. Butler. However, I'm already working on that. Actually, I started working on it today.
All right.
We're also conducting a needs assessment this year on all of our CTE and dual credit programs. So we're going to be assessing our programs, where we offer CTE, where we offer dual credit, what additional pathways exist for other content areas, such as math, calculus, statistics, social studies, and science, to expand those opportunities. So we'll have a needs assessment that will be conducted this year. We'll have a preliminary presentation to the board in February, and then findings in April or May.
Thank you so much, just from the both of us. You guys are working very hard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I would concur. Thank you very much. I think I'm good. Thank you.
And just, we've said kudos to the staff. I appreciate them very much, and Mr. Figueredo, but he will not give kudos to himself. So kudos to Mr. Figueredo, who was recognized by, the College Board this year as having significant contributions to writing and to the reading of the AP exams. So I think we have the right person on board to continue to move those scores in the right direction.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. Up next, questions from the public on agenda items only. If you have any questions or comments on anything on tonight's agenda, you can come on up to the microphone. You'll have 3 minutes. Just let us know your name and address. Yes, that's on the agenda. All right. Seeing none. Next up, first readings of Board Policy 9130, which I'll turn over to the policy team.
Take this? Okay, I'll take it. Ms. Trigg Scales and I met with Dr. Cascone as the policy committee and went over several policies last week, and how to continue our conversion from our existing policy system with New Jersey School Boards to Strauss-Esme, which we approved earlier this spring. And one of the policies that we discussed is the public complaints and grievances policies, and this is on for first reading. And as is our usual protocol, there is a policy form that will be on the WOBOE website for residents and anybody interested to go on and add any questions or comments they have on policy 9130. And a follow-up meeting at second reading is where we have discussion and comment about the policy. So may I have a motion, please, for first reading for policy 9130, public complaints and grievances?
I'll make
So
a motion.
moved.
Ladies first? What do you think? You both said motion.
No, it's Mark and Terry.
Second.
Okay,
Sure.
I'm sorry.
thank you. And any discussions? Okay. Or any comments? Okay, okay. Thank you.
Mrs. Merklinger,
Yes.
Mr. Robertson,
Yes.
Mrs. Trigg Scales,
Yes.
Vice President Mordecai,
Yes.
President Halper.
Yes. All right. Moving on. May I have a motion for personnel items 1 through 3 and the addendum?
I'll motion.
I'll second.
All right. Any discussion?
I have 2 abstentions. Abstained from Section C, Edward Duncan, out of district, and also Edward Duncan on page 6, letter M, for substitute appointment rates.
All right. Mr. Calavano?
Mrs. Merklinger,
Yes.
Mr. Robertson,
Yes.
Mrs. Trigg Scales,
Yes.
Vice President Mordecai,
Yes.
with the
For
abstentions.
the abstention, yes.
And President Halper.
Yes. All right, next up, curriculum and instruction, items 1 through 7. May I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Let me see.
No? All right. Mr. Calavano?
Mrs.
Yes.
Mr. Robertson,
Yes.
Mrs. Trigg Scales,
Yes.
Vice President Mordecai,
Yes.
President Alper.
Yes. Okay, finance, special services items 1 through 3, and business office items 1 through 12. May I have a motion?
All motion.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
I'll abstain for mine, for my reimbursements.
And if you just want to explain unbudgeted again?
On special services?
Yep.
Sure. So unbudgeted items on special services generally occur when a student moves into the district who wasn't previously known to the district. Budgeted expenses are generally those that the special services department knew were coming ahead of time. Unbudgeted generally relate to either new students or students where something was newly determined to be necessary.
Okay, and I have one. Okay.
Go ahead.
Under Business Office Number 3, while we are approving the following resolution for buildings and grounds, I'd like going forward, whenever we're approving things under certain departments, at the same time approve policies that relate to that item, because those policies may result in changes to the resolution, to be honest with you. And since we're in the middle of converting policies, we haven't gone through the many books. So at some point, this resolution might be revised based on whatever buildings and grounds policies we have, whether it's green purchasing or anything environmentally friendly or any other buildings and grounds types of policies. So I think that would be a good idea to have the policies go with whatever's on the agenda so that we can quickly go through the conversion, which is going to be a project. I also want to say I am happy to see that we are adding preschool classrooms at Washington School. It's been, an idea of mine for years that across the district we should have preschools, universal preschool. And I know that the governor has his initiative, and while we don't have the facility, anytime we have room in any of our elementary schools, it would be good to at least find one classroom so that we can have a preschool in that building to make sure that all our students are ready for kindergarten and be able to read on grade level when they hit the 3rd grade. And my last thing is, I just want to say thank you to the World Organization for Positive Action. Every year for the last 5 years, they've been donating backpacks to our children in Washington, Hazel, and Gregory School. And we've also been able to get the West Orange Rotary to donate in that regard as well to Redwood School and Kelly School. So this is a
And the Shillelagh for Edison.
great project. And this year, the Shillelagh Club for Edison. So so it's great to provide backpacks, which is, a small item to some parents, but it's a huge help to others.
Yeah.
So it's great. So it's great to have these community partners to make sure that our students are ready for school. So thank you.
Anything else?
Oh, I have one last thing. Our budget goals. Last week at the agenda meeting, I had mentioned this, and I don't see it in our budget goals. In 2013 to 2014, when we had our interim BAs, Marlene and Ralph, and I'm drawing a blank on their last names, they went from building to building, training all our principals on zero-based budgeting. And I know a few years ago it was mentioned that not everybody was using it. I would like zero-based budgeting to be a part of the budget goals that we are approving tonight. Would love if my colleagues had supported that or agreed with that,
I can tell you that it's in the directions that were sent to all the administrators.
but it's not on the goal. And if
Right.
I've learned over the years in school boards, if it's not a goal, it doesn't get done. So, would love support from you for zero-based budgeting.
To make zero-based budgeting part of the budget goals.
Yes, the budget goals are in item 11, and there are many bulleted here, CUSAC, determining needs versus wants, but the actual phrase zero-based budgeting, which our administrators were trained on, is not here. And since it wasn't done district-wide in the last 3 or 4 years that we thought it was being done,
I think that's arguable. I think it depends on how people discuss it. Dr. Cascone, do you want to weigh in on whether
Well, I think that without going into too much detail, I think the financial reality of the budgeting process really makes it an absolute necessity. When you think about, projected increases in salaries, projected increases in benefits, and then the amount of revenue we're able to generate from a 2% levy, if in fact we go to 2%, it already puts us in a position where we need to be saving money. So I think, talk about going above and beyond what's been allocated in previous years. I think that that's not even really on the table. I don't know if I'm speaking at a turn on that.
You're right.
Yeah.
So all that to say that it's already being done is
It's
what you're
baked
trying
in.
to say?
Correct.
It's baked in, okay.
Absolutely. It's a necessity, really.
And
It's a necessity, but it's not a goal, so that doesn't hold anybody accountable to doing it.
That's true.
So in the past, we've never made it a goal, and here we are, and financial reality is next year, March, there will be a referendum, right? So it's,
I would defer to the board.
I'm fine with it. I'd also like to note that,
With it as is, or with adding something?
I mean, I'm okay with zero-based budgeting since they already intend to do it. It's not going to change anything. It's not going to be.
Right, so we'd need a wording, and we'd need a motion in a second, right?
yes.
If you want to add
You
something to it, so.
just add the bullet point that says, in the process to utilize the zero-based budgeting.
Commitment to utilize zero-based budgeting in all buildings.
Commit to, I think, would be the,
Yeah.
commit to use
Commit to utilizing zero-based budgeting in all
utilizing
buildings.
zero-based budgeting in all buildings or throughout the entire budget process? Or what
District-wide.
makes more sense? District-wide. District-wide's good.
District-wide.
That's fine. District-wide's good.
All right, Mr. Calavano, do you have that?
I have it.
All right, say you'd like to move that, and then somebody can second it.
Yes,
then we can-
I'd like to move that. Move the
I'll second
revision
it.
to the goals, to the budget goals for the year 2020 to 2021 to include a commitment to utilize zero-based budgeting.
I'll second
District-wide.
that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so now that'll be part of the budget goals. Now you
Yeah.
ready
And
to
we still need
move
to
the whole
vote on
section?
the remainder of 1 to 3 special
Right.
services and 1 through 12 business office, assuming there was no further discussion on anything in there.
I'm just, no, not going to change anything, but we already have the development of other funds through fund development and grants as part of a district goal, which will hopefully impact the budget, but it doesn't need to be restated in the budget goals.
Right.
I have one last thing.
Indeed.
If you would like to explain to the public, or, explain it to us, what is happening with the egress into Bethany Evangelical Church and Edison School?
All right, so we're in early stages. Currently, the church that is next to Edison School, as you're exiting Edison, what's happening in the morning, parents are coming into that, through the church parking lot, one way, coming in, dropping their students off, turning around, exiting, while other traffic is coming in doing the same exact thing.
Yeah.
The proposed plan is to cut a driveway through their property and empty out onto our driveway so they can utilize our driveway to get to Main Street. And that'll make it a one-way in and a one-way out.
One way out, yeah.
So they won't be turning around in the Bethany
Right.
lot.
Right,
and
because
coming
right
back
now it's
out
a
onto-
disaster.
And
No-
so
no-
that's a safety issue.
It's a safety issue. There's no cost to the board, but it's in a very early stages. They wanted the board's commitment that at this point, if you're interested in allowing this to occur, then they'll take the next step. They didn't want to expend any money and then come to the end of the surveying process or wherever they're going to be and then find out after they spent the money that we're not interested in an easement.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Calavano, let's vote.
Mrs. Merklinger,
Yes.
Mr. Robertson,
Yes.
Mrs. Trigg Scales,
Yes.
Vice President Mordecai,
Yes.
President Alper.
Yes. And may I have a motion for reports, items 1 through 3?
I'll motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Mr. Calavano?
Mrs. Merklinger,
Yes.
Mr. Robertson,
Yes.
Mrs. Trigg Scales,
Yes.
Vice President Mordecai,
Yes.
President Alper.
Yes. All right. Petitions and hearings of citizens. You can come up, have 3 minutes to discuss any topic you'd like. Just let us know your name and address.
Good evening. Michaela Bennett, 35 Old Indian Road. So I didn't realize, I forgot that there was a meeting tonight, and my husband said, oh, there's a meeting. I thought you wanted to go to the next meeting. So I raced out and showed up to make sure that I could speak with you tonight about an experience that we've had. On August 22nd, our son had a freak accident and fractured his toe. And it was the second time he fractured the toe at the growth plate. It was pretty significant and serious, the surgery. And the surgeon was pretty concerned about him returning to school in the condition that he was in. And I just wanted to share with you the Herculean efforts that Roosevelt went through and the district went through to make sure that our son, with the use of his Chromebook, could attend school remotely or have homeschooling occur remotely. It was really an incredibly positive experience. He did extremely well. He has just tonight finished his 10th day at Roosevelt. He's back, and it was seamless. And I have to tell you that the district and everybody involved, special services, all of the exceptions and the protocols that were followed to make sure that he would be able to be receiving his education either with his classmates during class remotely. It was really incredible to watch or to overhear. I wasn't in the same room, but Ms. Gahar was the first to log on, and it was ELA. It was great. Ms. Santamora gave him extra help in the afternoons and evenings with her puppy dog beside her. And it was really just an amazing, amazing process. And I thought, after all we've been through, you deserve to hear from me when I feel like things were done really, really well. And so I just wanted to thank, everybody who was involved. Mr. Hush, without question, is an incredible administrator and made sure that everything occurred well. But all the teachers, Mr. Goldfarb, Miss Yu, band made sure that he had his music so that he could practice with his grandfather. I mean, it was really just incredible, and I wanted to thank you all. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Anyone further? All right. Seeing none, we'll close that portion. Great to hear such great news. That's fantastic. Dr. Cascone, anything?
Well, I did promise I would read my ode. So here it goes. So this is kicking off. It's an ode to West Orange professional educators. Today we begin the celebration of National Education Week. Acknowledgement of a different type of American hero is the occasion of which I speak. Day in and day out, the nation's children you inspire and reach. Of course, we insiders know you do much more than teach. You do it not for riches, glory, or fame, yet honor do you bring to your house, family, and name. For on the daily, you stand in the gap, raising our youngsters to higher heights. Your heads may rest easy on the pillow, knowing full well you are fighting the good fight. My hope is that this ode may fill your heart with pride, knowing that it's Doc C's honor and privilege to be in West Orange sharing the ride. Happy National Education Week, West Orange. And that is my report.
Very nice. All right, board member reports. Ms. Triggs-Scales.
So, Doc C, you're a poet and you know it. So, very short report. I did attend the iReady Math workshop for the middle school parents, which was held at Roosevelt. And after an overview in the auditorium, parents then broke into 3 groups by grade level. And phenomenal teachers led the groups. And I watched parents and I talked to parents, and they were totally engaged and working collaboratively and pleasantly surprised with all of the at-home activities that are available for students. Video games, videos. One of the parents said she was fussing at her child, like, why are you playing games? You're supposed to be doing math. And actually, I am doing math. So the kids are probably going to really enjoy the program, and I'd like to get an update, Mr. Mendez, as we move a little further in as to how it's being received, because the parents love it. I did sit in on the Allergy Awareness Town Hall last week, as Dr. Cascone mentioned, and those parents who were in attendance not only learned about the initiatives that the district is undertaking, but were asked for their input on what the district can do to better accommodate the needs of students with life-threatening allergies. They were very, very appreciative, and they've been asked, as you said, to continue to act as an ad hoc group as we move forward. And I was also at Gregory's check presentation ceremony with President Alper. They received a check from the Badlani family. Gregory raised $3,680. This was a contest among the schools. And for raising that, they were presented with a check for $2,000. And so the school is able to use that money. And I think I overheard Mr. Stupignan say that they were going to have some kind of an assembly so that each and every student could benefit from that prize. So they worked really hard to raise that money. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Ms. Mordecai.
Sure. I have a brief report as well. I had the pleasure of attending the Hall of Fame induction last week. Dr. Cascone was also there. It was a very proud moment for me as my son was one of the inductees. Thank you. He was a class of 2007 wrestling team. There were many inductees that I was surprised. I didn't realize how far back it went. Our mayor was one of the inductees, so was Mr. Quinn and several other West Orange residents. But it was so good to see the class of 2007. A lot of those young men from the wrestling team have moved, far away. There was one young man that came in from California, another from Florida, and many of them have been at my house playing video games. So it was good to see them after all these years. But kudos to everybody who organized it. It was very well run. I know at the beginning she said she had about the number was 115, and they were very happy to have over 200 people. They had to switch rooms. So it was really very well done for the first attempt. So hopefully next year we can do a collaboration, because I understand that this was a town event. So maybe next year we can do a collaboration with the school district and the town to get the word out and get more people there. It was a lot of fun, a lot of fun. And Mr. Zakella, I didn't realize his skills as an MC, but he was pretty funny. He was pretty funny. But it was really good, very well attended by a lot of the athletic staff, Director Bly, Coach Grant, many of the coaching staff was there. So it was really, really good. Of course, very good to acknowledge the students, but even better for us to come together and just have some, dinner and have a good time and, not rush around. So it was really good. Thanks.
Mr. Robertson.
Can I go last?
Sure. Thanks. Ms. Merklinger.
So just a few updates. Our hockey team opens up at home, which is Cody Arena, on November 30th, so I'm looking forward to that. I want to congratulate Shane Brosnan and Layla Gerard. The Homedale course is one of my favorites, and I can just tell you that running up that hill at the end, it's open field, it's the best feeling in the world, so congratulations to them. The state championship and then the Meet of Champions is always a fun event, so congratulations to them. That's a huge accomplishment. I want to congratulate Coach Grant and the football team, as well as the cheerleaders who were there to support them for all the games. It was a really fun game. To see West Orange come back at the end, I was actually leaving, and we came back and scored, and I was like, no, I got to stay now. So really glad for them. To go that far in the Group 5 North 2 conference is a huge accomplishment, especially in the first year. I've seen a lot of these players grow up, and I think we can see great things because the current sophomore and junior class won the, when they were PAL Mustangs, they won the championship. So I expect huge things of them next year. The band concert is this week. There's a family basketball night at the Tarnoff Gym on the 22nd, so I encourage everyone to attend that. That's a West Orange Rec and West Orange High School basketball event. I was glad to see so many of our veterans and Veterans Day being celebrated in our classes. There were assemblies, there were a lot of in-classroom things going on, so that was really nice to see. I want to congratulate our Mountaineer Squadron. They won 5 trophies at the Louise Dyruff High School drill competition. So congratulations to them. That's a huge accomplishment as well. Natalie Nevins on her signing with St. Joseph's University. That was a huge accomplishment as well. On a different note, I do want to send our thoughts and prayers to Camden and Pleasantville on the unfortunate event at their football game that happened Friday night while we were all celebrating our football team. But fortunately, they are resuming that game this Wednesday, so we wish them all the best of luck with that. With Thanksgiving coming up, there are a lot of food drives, so I would just ask that if you have the ability to do so, please donate to the Trinity Food Church. They're collecting turkeys. The Mayor's Sunshine Fund is also collecting toys for kids up through age 10. You can drop those off at Town Hall. I want to congratulate all the Hall of Fame inductees. Unfortunately, I couldn't be there. I do have to say my cheerleading season is coming to an end. They will be performing at the Toys for Tots Night with Santa at Club 466 on December 11th. So I encourage everyone to come out and see the West Orange High School cheerleaders, the PAL cheerleaders. It's a really great event, and it's for a really good cause. So hope to see you all there. And then just with a lot of the focus being on mental health and mental wellness, this Saturday is International Survivors of Suicide Last Day. So for all of those that are dealing with, who are survivors of having dealt with a suicide or a loss like that, just know that my thoughts are with you, and there are lots of events going on in the area. So join me at some of those. I will be out and about Saturday at those events. So that's it.
For me, along with all those other things, it's been a while since our last meeting. I just wanted to, say how good the play was. William Shakespeare's long lost first play. I think a lot of people maybe thought it was actual Shakespeare, but it wasn't. It was kind of a parody thing. I went with my 8th grader and a 7th grade friend, and I wasn't sure they were going to really get it all, and they really enjoyed themselves. Everybody was it was hilarious. Those kids did an amazing job. We've got a really, as we know, great drama department. And then this Thursday, I'm going to be at a sustainability workshop up in Alamucci. So there's a new school boards event they're putting on.
That's a long day, let me tell you.
Yeah.
That's a very long day.
Yeah, it should be good, though. You'll learn a lot. All right, and that's all I've got. So that's your turn.
Okay. Yeah. Congratulations to Mr. Bridge, an amazing English teacher, for the teaching award he just won. And Shakespeare's long lost first play was absolutely hilarious, very funny, and it's actually very sophisticated. That was a difficult parody to do. We've relaunched the diversity committee, and Ms. De Mendez did a terrific job, and that was a very engaging meeting on so many different levels, and as well as the subcommittees. I'm on the curriculum subcommittee. That was a lot of fun. I do want to say congratulations to Coach Grant. Not only how far he took the team, but it's how far the team has come in so many ways. I mean, the mindset, the focus, the discipline, the maturity that the boys showed. Very impressed with the boys. Very impressed with the assistant coaching team, including the volunteer coaches squad that he put together. And we literally, just from a productivity standpoint, scored more points this year than the past few years combined, and held teams to fewer points this year than many, many, many teams. In addition to just looking at the wins we accomplished overall, and that was a huge accomplishment for the team. Looking forward to Joelle participating in the December 11th event with the other cheerleaders. And Ronnie always does a great Toys for Tots event every year. And Liberty is having a food drive. Thanks for reminding us about the food drives. And congratulations again, to Mountaineer Squadron. And also, really, as we look at Major Marchesini and Chief Thurston, they're just doing an amazing job with the hundreds of kids that they've helped to mold into leaders, many of whom are actively serving an active duty 14 the past year, and several have gone to military academies, and even for the kids who don't decide to go the military route, they all come away with a greater sense of teamwork and leadership and just maturity and focus that they carry through in the other areas of their life. And they're just doing a spectacular job. And absolutely congratulations to Nat Nevins, Natalie. She's always been a star, and she's pretty amazing. And to all of our inductees, and Sandra, to your son, for being inducted into the Hall of Fame. That's absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. As I come to one of my last board meetings, and we have this one including, it's only 2 left after this, I wanted to follow through on something that I had promised myself I'd follow through on a while ago. And don't mean to surprise, but gave this a great deal of thought. And this is I want to offer a resolution for the board's consideration. And I'll read it. Whereas West Orange, this is a resolution to expand the board to 7 members. And it would have to occur via a referendum vote. We know that we're working on the referendum for the capital improvements funding, and I'll read it and then pass it out.
I don't want to interrupt you, but because we're a lame duck board, we would not be able to act on this. This would have to wait till January.
Actually, I spoke with, according to Carl Tanksley, New Jersey School Board, head of New Jersey School Board Legal, the lame duck board applies in areas of staff appointees and creations or alterations of existing positions. It does not apply to board resolutions.
According to our board attorney, it does apply to board resolutions. We're
I'd
not
like to
able
see that
act
in
on
writing.
this.
So what I'd like to do is to offer the resolution. Okay, here. Power authority governed by common law.
It's certainly okay for next year's board to discuss this, to hold
invalidate,
workshops on it and to consider it, but this board
find
can't do anything
successors
on it, or
typically.
it'll end up being reversed.
Okay, it can be reversed, but I'd like to offer the resolution, and I shall read it. Whereas West Orange Board of Education, also West Orange Public School District, WOPS, has approximately 7,000 students, yet a 5-member Board of Education. Whereas the state of New Jersey, of the 67 school districts with 5,000 or more students, 59 have 9-member boards, 6 have 7-member boards, only 3 have 5-member boards of those. Whereas West Orange Board of Education participates in 20 to 24 regularly scheduled closed and public sessions annually, 15 to 30 special sessions annually for legal review, personnel issues, HIB hearings, code of conduct hearings, disciplinary hearings, residency hearings, capital improvement referenda, safety and security meetings or forums, professional firm interviews, portfolio reviews, contract reviews, union negotiations, etc., and other district concerns. Whereas the West Orange Board of Education, in conjunction with its financial and student achievement and legal governance responsibilities, reads, reviews, and discusses and approves and adopts rarely fewer than 30 and up to 1,800 personnel actions as occurs during budget time per regular, closed, and open session meetings, 10 to 1,000 finance and budget expense line items per meeting, including bills, payroll items, treasury and fund transfer reports, field trips, stipends, out-of-district tuitions, itemized departmental expenses, and other contracts and contracts and reports. Whereas the board participates in superintendent, chief school administrator, and other evaluations and board self-evaluations and other meetings related to that, as well as district and board goals. And whereas the Board of Education maintains official board committees and board functions for and participates in New Jersey School Board delegate assemblies for lobbying platforms and joint resolutions, town liaison committee, legislative committee, public relations committee, and participates in district committees and subcommittees, inclusive of but not limited to diversity committees and subcommittees, health and wellness, allergy awareness, gifted and talented, math and other subcommittees on content and curricula. And whereas from July 15th to December 31st, July 15th, 2015 to December 31st, 2018, for 3.5 years, a single board member had a conflict and was not allowed to then participate in or discuss key areas of board governance, including superintendent contracts, teacher contracts, evaluations, merit bonuses, personnel actions, etc., and limiting the 5-member board at that point becoming a 4-member voting board on key actions and decisions. And whereas the board, West Orange Public School Districts, according to the New Jersey School Boards, has noted that 7-member boards are more effective in executing committee systems than 5-member boards. And whereas the state Board of Education must review data according to statute, we must review data and information before making decisions and adopt all curricula, whereas the 7-member board allows for more public representation and can reduce special interest dominance in decision-making, and whereas the statute 18A 12-12 allows for the Board of Education to increase or make a reduction in membership resolution by submission of question if the board of any district shall determine by resolution that is for the best interest of the schools, and members of the board shall be increased from whatever number of members, then compose it to whether to 5 to 7 or 9, or reduced from said number. The question of such increase or reduction shall be submitted to all voters of the district at the next annual school election, and the question shall be stated in the notice of election. I hereby submit this resolution to the West Orange Board of Education for a vote to increase the West Orange Board from the size of 5 board members to 7 board members, designating that the West Orange Board of Education will place the resolution to increase the size to 7 board members on the 2020 public ballot for referendum vote, and on said ballot used for capital improvement referendum in March of 2020 ballot or as soon as able, and no later than the November 2020 ballot for approval by voters of the Township of West Orange, New Jersey. And I have attachments of the statutes, and if you could pass down a copy. And I'd like to make a motion to advance this resolution. Do I have a second? No seconds? Okay.
Seeing no seconds.
Wait.
I would
There
like...
can't be a discussion unless there's a second, and it is improper for this board as a lame duck board to even
Mr.
have the discussion.
Alper,
This is a perfectly
let me make
acceptable
my
discussion
comment.
for next year.
Let me make my comment. I would like the opportunity for the Board of Ed's attorney to review the resolution, both for content and for alliance with the correct statute, and also to give us an advisory opinion on whether or not a lame duck can vote on this. And because the resolution states that the election would be for March 2020 to decide on the resolution, and then the election to elect the board members would be November 2020. So obviously, we will not be, two current board members will not be on the board March 2020 or November 2020.
Right.
So I just want to make sure, through the board attorney's review, if this document is...
Yes.
You can certainly submit anything.
Okay.
We can certainly submit anything to the board attorney, but at the moment, there's a motion.
Yeah, I
So,
know, but that's my
regardless of
comment.
of the disposition of that motion, it's perfectly fine for any or all of us, to send, and we should, as a matter of course, if you could do it electronically and send it to me so that I can forward it,
Happily.
that would be helpful.
Okay.
We can certainly do that, but I do not see a second on this motion. And seeing none, our next board meeting will be right here, December 9th, 8 p.m. We'll see you then. Yes.
One last thing. I just want to just make a shout out to Mike and Larry Verducci.
Thank you.
I meant to mention that in my board report. They are on the mend and recovering. So I just want to let them know, not that they're probably not watching this, but if they do, that we're all thinking of them and wish them well.
And our prayers are with them, yes.
Thank you.
Yes,
With
prayers
that,
are with
we're
them.
adjourned.